Hey everyone, my name is Wedge. Modern decks are all over the place, and let's be honest, most of them are ridiculously expensive. Luckily, the Mana Source and TCGplayer.com have your back. In this video, I'm going to tech for you a sweet budget mono green Stompy deck. By budget, I mean less than $100, closer to $80 actually. And the best part, this deck can steal wins all over the place, could easily 3-1 a modern FNM, the dream, right? Anyways, as we go through the video and talk about each card, you'll see a graphic that shows you the price on TCGplayer.com right now for said card. If you enjoyed the deck and want it outright, or get the pieces you're missing, the first link in the description takes you directly to TCG Player, and with one click you can buy the whole thing. No hassle, no searching for cards, super easy. It also helps support the channel, so win-win. Alright, let's talk budget modern. Mono Green Stompy is a budget list that's been going around for years with various iterations. With the recent bannings of Splinter Twin and Summer Bloom, this deck actually gets a lot better. Lacking good interaction with those combo decks, aggro decks were all bumped up a little bit. Considering the modern meta is now much more aggressive than it used to be, Mono Green Stompy is pretty well positioned as a strong FNM level strategy. For lands, we're running 2 Oran Reef the Vastwood, 2 Treetop Village, and 18 Forests. Mono green means our mana is super easy and the non-basics are simply additional value that we can afford to run, 22 lands in total. Starting at the bottom of our curve, we have playsets of Dryad Militant and Experiment 1. The Militant is a great 1-drop. 2 power for 1 mana is always good, and the ability hoses any type of Snapcaster strategy, Delver strategy, control variants. It's also a really good way to make Delve harder to enable. Tassiger being more difficult to cast is always a good thing. Experiment 1 is a great card for our deck thanks to the Evolve mechanic. This incremental growth is exactly what we're looking for, since the chances of us going 1-drop into 2-drop into multiple 1 or 2 drops is pretty high. Starting out as a 1/1, you can bet that Evolve will trigger at least twice without a problem. Decent 1-drops. Our 2-drops hold the real power of the deck. We'll begin with Force Stranglerootgeist. A lot of players have forgotten about this card since rotation, but I believe that's a mistake. A hasty 2-power 2-drop that will likely take 2 cards to get rid of it is amazing. The haste is great, but the Undying, that's what we're really after. Resilience is something most aggro decks don't have. The Geist coming back as a 3/2, that's resilience we can get behind. Applies turn 2 pressure and protects itself. What's not to like? Next up, Scavenging Ooze, 3 of them. This isn't the most aggressive creature, but let's be honest, it's too good not to play. If you trade early and get some creatures in the yard, you can make the ooze real big, which won't be a problem mana-wise since you only produce green mana. The ooze is great in any strategy that kills other creatures. While you don't have kill spells, you do have a bunch of aggression. Aggression fills graveyard. Scavenging Ooze is great. A full playset of Avatar of the Resolute is the latest addition to the deck. Double green is obviously never a problem. A 3/2 for 2 is always good, plus Reach and Trample are just gravy. The ability isn't always useful, but we do have Experiment 1, Scavenging Ooze, and Stranglerootgeist to trigger it. Sometimes the Avatar enters the battlefield as a 5/4, sometimes a 6/5. In grindy matchups, it's even better, a true powerhouse, one of the staples of the deck for sure. Moving on up to our 3-drops, we really start to see some advantages we get from playing mono green. 4 Leatherback Baloth really couldn't be in a 3 or even 2-color deck consistently. Triple green is tough to generate, especially on turn 3. Since we're only playing green, it's super easy for us, and the Baloth will usually land a turn earlier than a Siege Rhino or Tassiger. It lets us attack with our 4-power monster before our opponents get to attack with theirs. No trample or anything, but a giant creature they have to deal with. It's good enough for us. Our other 3-drop, and again a reason to play mono green, is Dungrove Elder. We're running 3 of them. Hexproof is the bee's knees since targeted removal is all over the place. When it drops, it'll likely be a 3/3. As the game goes on, it just keeps getting bigger. With 4 forests, it's out of Anger the Gods range. At that point, legitimate sweepers become your only real enemy. It's possible that because of this card alone, you can come down on your Oran Reefs a bit. You want forests all the time for this card. 18 is enough most of the time though. You can expect that this will be a 3/3 when you drop it, and a 6/6 in no time. So good against anything aggressive or removal based. The last creature in our deck is a 1-up, Thrun the Last Troll. We don't want to draw multiples of this legendary, and 4 mana really is the top of our curve, so we don't want the bulkiness in hand too much, but Thrun is a beast. Hexproof is amazing, getting to regenerate him is amazing, can't be countered is great. He's a 4/4 that's nearly impossible to get rid of, seriously. You can regenerate him and he can't be targeted. Basically all his dust or another sacrifice effect when he's the only creature you have, that's what kills him. Want to talk resilience? Talk Thrun. That's going to do it for our 27 creatures. That leaves us with 11 non-creature, non-land cards. 4 Rancor are a must-include. Granting additional power and trample for such a cheap cost is too good to ignore. Plus, you get the Rancor back on the creature's death. Come on, it's crazy. Especially when Rancor will most definitely encourage trades. It's basically what it's there for. Probably the best non-creature card in the deck for sure. It's so reliable. It's so reliable. All that's left are 7 pump spells. We're running 4 Vines of Vastwood because we like protecting our creatures and then immediately pumping them up to high heaven. It's also pretty easy since, mono green. Go to combat, our opponent tries to remove our Leatherback Baloth, we completely destroy them in every way. Classic. Vines is great. While Aspect of Hydra doesn't grant hexproof for a turn, it is an incredibly cheap spell that was basically designed for the exact deck we're running. Remember, we have the Geist, the Avatar, Baloth, Thrun, even Rancors count towards devotion. Aspect of Hydra will likely give a creature +3/+3 or +4/+4 most of the time at the very least. In a grindy matchup, when one of your creatures already has a Rancor on it, Aspect could give upwards of +10/+10. Imagine that in a Trampler. So good. The last card in our deck is a single Revenge of the Hunted. Become Immense isn't reliable enough since our graveyard shouldn't be that full, especially early game. Revenge of the Hunted is one of our best top decks. Not only do you get to cast it for 1 mana, but the creature you target gets Trample and Lure. It's basically a removal spell for every available blocker. Disgusting value. We're only running 1 because we really don't want it in our opening hand. It could be better to run 0, but honestly, living the dream feels so good you have no idea. If you're running a budget list like this, you might as well have a little fun. Revenge of the Hunted is a lot of fun, worth the inclusion in my opinion. Mono Green Stompy is incredibly straightforward. You are an aggro deck. You play all of your creatures, turn them sideways, then pump them up until you get a nosebleed. Just a few things to take note of. If you have Avatar of the Resolute in your hand, but you also have a few other cards that can get +1/+1 counters on them, hold back on the Avatar for a turn or 2. That card entering the battlefield as a 5/4 is much more effective than it entering as a 3/2, even if you're delayed a turn or 2. As long as you have something else to cast, I'd probably do that first. Also, try not to use Vines of Vastwood to pump your creatures unless your opponent casts a removal spell first, they're tapped out, or you're trying to win a decisive battle in combat. You really don't want a removal spell in response to your Vines, nothing feels worse. Also, if given the option, always drop Experiment 1 before you drop Dryad Militant. It gets your evolve triggers going sooner rather than later, it's just better sequencing. We'll talk sideboard really quickly, then how you can make the deck even more budget. Alright, now that Twin is gone, Natural State might be better than Nature's Claim. You don't want your opponents gaining life, so Natural State gets rid of most of the artifacts and enchantments you'd care about. Creeping Corrosion is great against Affinity, basically ends the game right there. Obstinate Baloth is hard to overcome for burn players. Same could be said for a super budget option like Feed the Clan. You could even get Ferocity out of it, so there is value there. These are just some options. Besides these, obviously the normal stuff like Grafdigger's Cage, Relic of Progenitus, easy peasy. Want to make this budget list even more budget? You can do that. Removing Thrun and the Dungrove Elders cuts the cost by around 30%. Replace them with Colonian Tuskers and you still have a great Devotion Enabler and an aggressive play. 3 Toughness is good in this meta, especially with cards like Holigan's Command running around. Also, you could just remove the non-basics. Treetop Village is $3, so removing both of those and the Oran Reefs for more basic forests cuts the deck another 10%. There's plenty of movement here. You can get this deck down to 40 or 50 easy, probably lower even. Enjoy the cheapness. There you have it, a really fun budget modern deck. Remember, if you want to buy this deck or any of the pieces, please click the first link in the description. It's going to bring you to tcgplayer.com and you can buy the deck with 1 click if you want. If not, pick and choose which pieces you want. It's super easy. I wouldn't send you there if I didn't believe in it. Plus, it helps the channel out, so win-win all around. As always, subscribe for the latest and most reliable Magic the Gathering information you could ever need. This is the Mana Source. I'm Wedge. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time. This video is brought to you by TCGplayer.com, and if you're as excited as I am about Mono Green Stompy, there really is no better place to buy the pieces for it. You can grab copies of Thrun the Last Troll right now for $8. Want the annoyingly hard to find Dungrove Elder? $5 a piece right now. You won't find these cards cheaper anywhere. Click the link in the description below, build this amazingness, and support the channel at the same time. It's so much value.